right in, shall we? I don't care. I'm gonna do it. I don't care. I'm gonna keep talking. Alright. We've broken the ice a bit. Fact is, today I wanted to talk about classical music. Because I've had a few experiences recently where people have subscribed to my channel and they've thought, oh, okay, so you like Rubik's Cubes and you like jazz music. And you talk about jazz music. And that's one of the early videos. I'm not saying that no one's watching at this point yet, but I'm just saying it's one of those early ones that people are actually still, they mention to me, and they're like, oh, you like jazz music. And the fact is, I certainly do. Oh my God, I certainly do love jazz music, but I love instrumental music in general, and I love music that makes you think. And one thing that I've started doing here, and I've done for a couple of weeks now, or I guess 3 weeks now, it started with a Brahms piano concert that I saw on Haonam Street, which is the music street. And that was a beautiful concert. And since then, weekly I've been going to a cafe, which is kind of hidden. It's actually an upstairs thing near one of the cathedrals near Westlake. And you go upstairs and they have a piano player. And this last week I heard him play, of course, standards like Beethoven and all that. Hungarian Sonata, I think he played at one point. He played an excellent Chopin Nocturne, which I've been repeating every day, or all day since then. Since hearing that, like, I got home and I put it on YouTube, and I've been listening to it again. And it's just really just sad and beautiful, and the sort of music that just fits the mood of winter entirely and perfectly. And stuff that makes you think like that, even if it's just a solo piano. I guess for whatever reason I've been listening to a lot of solo piano, but that's where you get good classical music. That's where familiar songs are played. You experience all of that, and yet it allows you to feel all of the pain that you're going through, and allows you to connect with the desolation and the emptiness of winter, which is a true phenomenon everywhere in the world, which I've discovered. I can't imagine even going to Australia or somewhere that I would escape it completely. But I say that as someone, I brag about all these places that I've been to, but I still haven't seen much of the world, really. Classical music. I think, so my first experience overseas was in Germany. And I made a point to go to Leipzig. And Leipzig is in the east. And there, at a cathedral, is where Bach is buried. And right at his grave, right in the middle of the cathedral. I guess they bury people in their cathedrals in Germany. Just like I saw that Martin Luther was buried at his own cathedral in Wittenberg, right next to where the pastor was speaking. That's a different story anyway, but you see Bach there in Leipzig, or the grave of Bach, and they play his music 24/7. They just have people come from the university, and they keep his music going, and it's beautiful. And I really got turned on to Bach listening to flute, especially the flute sonatas played by Rampal, the French flutist, who's one of my great heroes. And I went to see his grave in Paris, but I couldn't quite identify the exact stone. But that's one of my other hobbies, is I like to go to famous gravesites. This is Vietnamese coffee, and it's... Can I show it to you? I really don't like this stuff. Anyway. It's nowhere. So, with classical music, like, being able to express certain things and have a certain feeling is just, it's like nothing else. And it's those experiences that I guess other people get when they go to metal shows, or they go to concerts that they really like. And of course, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I loved going to rock and roll concerts. But I remember as soon as I got into college, I would go to, every week I would go see jazz, and I would go see classical. And classical became such a part of my repertoire. even before jazz and alongside jazz, especially as the more jazz I listened to, the more classical I got turned on to. And Beethoven became my fuel for when I had to study for exams or whatever. I'd stay up late at night drinking coffee, and I would just blast Beethoven, and that's what got me through my undergrad years. I would go to concerts, and it was hilarious because I would see people who would go there who are music majors, and they would have to get something stamped off on this. I guess they had to prove that they went to all these music shows, and they'd get the stamp, and they'd leave. And I would go there as someone who was not a music major, who was taking no music classes whatsoever. But I would go there just because I loved listening to classical music. And I got turned on to Bartók and the Moldau. Who is that? Smetana. And my friends, I was such a wannabe. I loved music, but I couldn't really play anything, and I didn't really study it. I was more interested in the social sciences. Back in the day, I was studying psychology and sociology and stuff like that. Economics a little bit. And teaching, of course, teaching was one of my interests in something I studied early on. But of course, as much as I loved music, like the more I got turned on to music, the more I interacted with musicians, people who could play this stuff, and people who would invite me to concerts and so on. And that's something that I really miss about those old days, and it's something that I'm glad that I've been able to find here in Hanoi. Because, like I said, at first there was that Brahms concert, and then there was, each week I've been going to see live piano at a cafe. And I guess I'll close out here. I'll make this a shorter video, I think. I'll close out here just talking about the difference between going to see a Brahms concert on Haonam Street and seeing just a piano player at a cafe at a weekly piano event thing that they do kind of near West Lake. And I remember going to the Brahms concert, and I was just captivated by it. Of course, he played one variation of Hungarian dance that we all love, but he didn't play the familiar da 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 da. He didn't play the classic one that we know that's been in so many great media, so many great films. Like of course, I think of the barber shaving somebody in The Great Dictator, the Charlie Chaplin film. Anyway, he didn't play that song, which I later heard, and I heard this a week ago at the cafe. But I remember being at the concert hall, and I'm listening, and I'm captivated by the music, and I'm not, I'm there on my own, I'm just hanging out there by myself, and I went there, and I thought there was supposed to be an entrance fee or something. They just ushered me in. And I got a nice seat in the back, but then there were these two old ladies, Vietnamese ladies, who were talking to each other this whole time. And they were showing each other their phones, like showing different pictures of whatever. I don't care, I don't know, I didn't look. And I shushed them many, many times all throughout the night. And when a group of Vietnamese people sat in front of me, I got them to shush them as well, and they stopped for just a little while. But like the impulse, the urge to just talk and talk and talk during the concert was just impossible for them to resist. And I hate to say it, but it almost ruined it for me. Well, it was that. What ruined it for me was he didn't play the classic variation on Hungarian dance. But I'm just being picky. But I love classical music. But then, I want to talk about like how much better it is going to hear it at cafes. This cafe that I go to that has an upright piano. But I don't know where they get these musicians. I've heard a couple piano players so far, but they've been able to play Chopin nocturnes. They've been able to play Brahms, like the Hungarian dance that I wasn't able to hear at Haonam Street. They were able to play. And Hungarian Sonata, Beethoven, of course, Fiorelis, a great version of that. But it was all, one thing we noticed, I was there with a friend who also likes classical music, and one thing that we noticed is that the tempo was a little bit off and a little bit fast. And so that created a bit of a difference between what was being produced and what might be recognized. But that's what I love about it, and that's what I love about seeing acoustic music and classical music acoustically. I think it's just as valuable as with jazz, where you think, well, with jazz, to really understand it, you have to see it live. To really get a performer, you have to see them up close. But at the same time, there are jazz records that I love, whereas live performances of a given musician, like, say, Dave Brubeck or somebody, isn't as good as what's recorded, to me at least. And I get the same sense with symphonic music. And given, okay, everyone, like, the assumption that I made, and the assumption that a lot of people make, is that, well, it's all written out. Like, they have everything planned for them anyway. So how different can it be? But once you start to really grok, that's the word I'm looking for. Once you start to grok classical music, you realize the infinity of variations between performances, and that's when you really discover what's what's to be had, the real juice, the real meat of the music that I consider my favorite music next to jazz. I guess number 2 next to jazz, but anyway, I'm just talking blah 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 blah.